on, guys? Welcome back to another video, and in this video we're going to be doing something that a lot of Mustang owners don't usually do to their car because it's just a very boring mod. But in my case scenario, I absolutely need to jump into this because I ended up adding this mod on my car a few years back, if you even really want to consider it a mod, and it is way out of date at this point. It's very cringy, it's very boring, and I really needed to mature up this car a little bit more, and I'm going to be taking one step forward today in this video. And what I'm going to be talking about are the door locks over on the car. At one point, I thought they were the most badass things ever. No other Mustang owner has them, and it goes to show that I see the reason why no other Mustang owner has them, because they're just really that ugly. If you guys don't know what these are actually AR shells. I ended up just going ahead painting it, and I added like a little slot inside the AR shell, and I screwed it over on the top of the door lock that you can see right here, and I actually ended up using heat shrink around it to hold it in place. And let me just say, it was not the best route to go. They ended up like popping off a lot. They would like slide up, they wouldn't stay tight. And we're going to eliminate that today, and we're actually going to be throwing these on. These things, in my opinion, they look very boring, but it really matures the car up tenfold in my opinion. We're actually probably going to paint them, and if we find out any other ideas that would make these look a lot better, we're definitely going to go tackle that as well. And if you guys feel there's any other things that we could do to these door locks from what you just saw, please leave it down in the comment section down below, and I might even be using your idea, and I'll be shouting you out in the next video if I do end up liking your idea. And I wasn't originally going to be planning on making this video because I thought it was going to be just a very basic and just lame ass video, because to be honest with you, anybody can go to the auto parts store and go buy door locks for their car. But I also thought about it too. No one's really made custom door locks for their Mustang, and I thought, you know what, that'd be a great video for people who out there who don't want that cheap plastic shit that you go over and get the auto parts store and wanted something a little bit more durable. And it's not like I use these things every single day, and actually thinking about it now, you better be using these every single day, because if not, you're gonna get your shit stolen. And I feel like this is a great mod that you could add to your car because it adds that slight detail to make your car a lot more unique to not only to you, but to the rest of the Mustangs out there. And I don't know why I keep showing this as a demonstration. This is the shit we're not even gonna be using to begin with. And this is the material that I ended up using. Some random ass shell that I ended up finding out of one of these bins. You could probably find this in like a trash can, or I don't even really know where you could find this stuff. Maybe an auto parts store, wherever the case may be. But it's pretty much the size of a pencil, maybe a slightly smaller. But what I did notice when putting these things on, that the tube is bigger than what the door lock actually is on the car. And so what I did tell you guys earlier, we actually needed to use heat shrinks over on the door lock, because without it, it was going to make it to where it just slides up and down. Using that heat shrink, on the other hand, though, added a little bit more thickness over on the thread, and it caused it to slide in a lot more easier. And what we're going to be doing first is we're going to be shoving this wall anchor that you could get at Home Depot, Lowe's, or even just like Walmart. These are not really hard to find at all. We're going to be shoving this wall anchor inside this tiny little shaft. And if you realize already, this anchor looks a lot bigger than the tube. And you also got to think about it too, that the threads on the door locks are going to be a lot longer, and we don't want it to interfere with what we're trying to put it in. We're actually going to cut this right here into about a quarter, and once we do that, it should leave it to where there's about this much room from the top and then this much room to the bottom, so the thread can actually go into the door lock and we can actually have a useful door lock. Because if not, then this whole thread is going to interfere with that thread, causing it to not want to sit in there properly. What we're going to do, as you can see, once you push it into the hole, it fits somewhat snug. And so you can push it down as much as you can. If you can get it all the way, great. But if not, I'm going to spin you guys all the way around. I have found that throwing it on the vise makes it a lot more easier to push this thing in, because you're not having to put all that stress on your fingers and trying your best to get it in. So once you do that, as you can see, when you close it, you're going to start seeing it push itself in. And you might run into an issue where some of the plastic will kind of go off on the sides, but that's perfectly okay. We're going to solve that issue when the time comes. So once that was cut and pushed in, you can see this thing sits nice and flush. I could push up on it and it's not going anywhere. So the way in order to clean this up, because you can see there's a little bit of rim that goes around it, we're going to go ahead and use a Harbor Freight machine that would be able to sand it a lot quicker and easier once you spin the shafts. Or we're going to do another option as well that a lot of people are probably going to end up using, because this is a cheaper option, is using a sanding block and going around the edges and just kind of scraping it as we go to make sure that this thing sits as slim as we possibly can. Harbor Freight tools, they work perfectly. Come on, old blue! Come on, you can do it. Don't you talk back to me! Do as you're told! Oh, there we go. All right. Next, what we're gonna do after we have this thing pressed in is we're actually gonna sand it down one more time over on the belt, make it as smooth as we possibly can over on an angle going each and every direction. I really have no clue where I left off in this video because this video has just pretty much been all over the place because I've been kind of just bouncing around just trying to get the portions of it done and doing it correctly. There was a couple times where I had to go out of my way and just start adjusting little things here and there. I'm just gonna go jump right into painting even though it's like 50 degrees outside and it's absolutely a terrible time to paint, but I really want to get this done and I'm not trying to rush through it, but I'm kind of rushing through it at the same time as well. But I already went ahead and cleaned these up with alcohol and I threw them over on a piece of cardboard with a rivet sticking up over the top so they can just stand up straight and I'm not laying them over on their sides, because if I was to lay them over on their sides and to paint them, you can just imagine how that's going to turn out. It's going to look like complete shit. So I went ahead, plugged those in, and we're going to go right ahead and paint these black. You can do whatever color you want, obviously. I'm just doing mine black because I'm just a big fan of black interior, and I feel like it's a way to cover things up where you don't see it at the same time. Notice the little subtle differences. Dry so we can go ahead and do our second coat. There was something I was thinking about while doing this and I was like, you know, how good would it look if those door lock covers had some grommets on them? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go try to put these things on. No clue if this is even the right size for it, but I thought it might give it more of a cleaner appearance, and if it doesn't, worst case scenario, we just take it off. So I did a little bit of playing around with this a little bit, and I'll be completely honest, it does not look good at all. I don't like how bulgy it looks, and it looks kind of like shit. But I do want to point out, though, that I did add a couple more layers over on these door locks, and it might look good if I add a little bit of white paint over on the top to match the outside of the car, but I'm not 100% sure yet if I really want to do that. But they are pretty dry right now. I let it sit for a little bit. The proper way to do it would be to let it sit for a couple hours or even 24 hours overall. Pretty dry when I touched it, so we're just going to stick with what we think looks dry. And I wouldn't be surprised if my fingerprints are stuck on them the moment I try to put these things on, because me being impatient will probably end up leading me to redoing this over again. So all we're gonna do is put those caps back on, slide this in, push it on, and cross our fingers. And cross our fingers in hopes that it actually stays in one piece and doesn't pop up every single time we unlock these doors. I'm usually the type to say like, oh my God, I love this part. It looks absolutely amazing. It's awesome. But this time around, I might think otherwise. I do like this part, don't get me wrong, it looks good, especially for with the junk I had just laying around in order to make it look good in my opinion. But overall, it's subtle, it's simple, it's more modern, it's not over the top, and I like it because it's kind of hidden and out of the way and it's nothing really too exciting or crazy. When you look at it closely, you're not looking at anything that looks like, oh my God, I need that, but it's just something to have where it's just more like a more mature feeling. And like I said earlier in the video, this is not going to be the most exciting video in the world, but it was just something I wanted to point out there with you guys because I really want to be able to document every little thing that I do on this car that is at least somewhat interesting, but also at the same time too, something that you guys can also relate to as well, because maybe there's somebody out there that wants to do something very similar to what I've done to my car, or they're like, you know what, I'm glad that you showed me that because I really don't want to do that to mine. So there's a lot of different options you could choose from, and if you really do want to go out and go build something, you can go right ahead and go to AutoZone, Amazon, eBay, wherever the case may be, and be able to go find some universal door locks that will be able to fit your car. And they don't even have to be expensive, like the one today. I literally grabbed out of the drawers over on the shelf, and I just found whatever I could find that was scraps. I wouldn't be surprised if some of those like pole things that we end up putting over on the threads came off of a TV. Like, just being able to explore, try new things, and being able just to adapt and grow up and try things that you wouldn't usually try is what's the best part about modifying your car. And I feel like a lot of you guys will be able to accomplish that if you really put your mind to it. It's not a hard thing to do. In the worst case scenario, if it doesn't turn out good, you just do it again. If you just stayed stationary and you just didn't change and you just kind of did the same thing every day, things would get boring. That's kind of how cars are. And you keep referencing the car over and over and over again, because once you change things up, you want to keep going. You want to keep going. And that's how your life should be as well. You don't want to stay doing the same thing over and over again, or else you're just going to get bored. Well, other than that, though, enough with my rant. Thank you guys all so much for watching today's video, and I hope to see you guys in the next one when we don't even know what we're doing next. But you'll find out when I post that video.